Noah Miller had learned the weight of promises early in life. Not the loud, dramatic kind, the kind people made to impress others, but the quiet ones whispered late at night, meant for only one small person in the world. The kind that stayed lodged in your chest long after sleep refused to come. On the first Saturday of December, he made one of those promises again. Even if things get tight, he told his daughter, Christmas will still feel like magic. Emma, 7 years old and bundled in a red coat that had belonged to a neighbor's child the year before, nodded with solemn belief. She trusted him completely. That trust both warmed and terrified him. Wonderland Park rose at the edge of Portland like something torn from a snow globe, arches wrapped in white lights, towering pine trees dusted with artificial snow, music drifting through the air in soft, looping carols. Families streamed past the gates, laughter rising and falling like waves. Noah held Emma's mittened hand as they approached the entrance. The glow of the park reflected in her wide eyes. "Daddy," she whispered, as if afraid the moment might vanish if spoken too loudly. "It's even prettier than last year." He smiled, though his stomach tightened. At the ticket booth, Noah stopped. The sign listed the prices in clean black lettering. A full day's wage, gone in one swipe. His hand slipped into the pocket of his jacket and closed around the thick envelope he'd been carrying since Friday afternoon. Inside was his paycheck, already divided in his mind into rent, groceries, gas. There was no extra space, no safety net. Behind him, the line shifted. Someone cleared their throat. Noah looked down at Emma. She was humming softly to herself, rocking on her heels, eyes fixed on the spinning lights beyond the gate. Not asking, not begging, just waiting. "We don't have to do everything," he said gently. "Being here together is already pretty special." Emma tilted her head. "I don't care about rides," she said. "I just like when we walk around, and when you hold my hand." The words landed harder than any plea could have. Noah exhaled slowly. He pulled the envelope out, thumb brushing the worn edge. For a moment, he imagined explaining later why they turned back. How he'd tell her that magic sometimes had limits. Then he remembered. Another winter, a hospital room filled with machines. A promise he'd made beside a bed he hadn't been able to save. He slid the envelope across the counter. The gate opened, and Emma squeezed his hand like she'd won something priceless. Inside, the park pulsed with life. Fake snow drifted down from hidden machines, catching in hair and scarves. Vendors called out over the crowd, steam rising from cups of cocoa and paper cones of roasted chestnuts. Somewhere to the left, a carousel turned slowly, its painted horses glowing beneath a canopy of gold stars. Emma tugged him forward, laughter bubbling out of her chest. "Look, that one has flowers in its mane." Noah followed, letting himself be pulled into the moment. This was what he'd meant. Not gifts, not rides, just this feeling, being present, being here. As they moved deeper into the crowd, the noise thickened. Music overlapped, voices blurred. Noah adjusted his grip on Emma's hand, instinctively, tightening when bodies pressed too close. He was used to watching for danger, loose boards at construction sites, sudden drops, things that could go wrong if you weren't paying attention. That instinct kicked in just as something collided with his leg. He looked down. A little girl, maybe 5 or 6, clung to his jeans with both hands. Her face was streaked with tears, breath hitching in sharp, panicked gasps. She wore a white coat trimmed with fur, far nicer than anything Noah had ever bought. But one of her shoes hung loose, the strap undone. Dark curls stuck to her cheeks. She looked up at him, eyes wide and desperate. "Hey," Noah said immediately, crouching down. "Hey, it's okay." It wasn't. The girl buried her face against his knee and sobbed harder, small shoulders shaking. Noah felt something twist painfully in his chest. He knew that sound, the sound of a child who had lost their anchor. Emma knelt beside him without hesitation. "It's all right," she said softly, the way Noah spoke to her when storms rattled the windows at night. "My daddy's really nice. He'll help you." The girl lifted her head just enough to look at Emma. Something in her expression shifted. Not calm, exactly, but less wild, less alone. Noah rested a careful hand on the child's back. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Clara," she whispered, voice trembling. "That's a beautiful name," he said.
"I'm Noah."
"And this is Emma." Clara's fingers tightened in his jacket as if afraid he might disappear. The music played on. Snow fell. Lights blinked overhead. And just like that, the promise Noah had made to be present, to hold on, to show up, took on a new shape. The first thing Noah did was look for a uniform. He scanned the crowd instinctively, eyes trained by years of construction sites and crowded job trailers, searching for something official, reflective. Vests, radios clipped to belts, anyone who looked like they belonged to the machinery that kept a place like this from tipping into chaos. Wonderland Park shimmered and sparkled. But beneath the lights, it was still a system. Someone had to be responsible. "Emma," he said quietly, keeping his voice steady. "Stay right here with Clara. Don't move." Emma nodded at once, reaching for Clara's hand as if it were the most natural thing in the world. The smaller girl clutched her back, fingers cold even through the mitten. Noah straightened and spotted the security station sign a few yards away, shaped like a gingerbread house with red and white trim. Felt almost cruelly cheerful. He guided both girls toward it, his free hand resting protectively on Clara's shoulder as if anchoring her to the world. Inside, the air was tight with urgency. A line of parents snaked through the narrow space, faces pale and strained. Some clutched phones, photos already pulled up and ready to be shown. Others argued softly with security staff whose radios crackled non-stop, overlapping voices calling out locations, descriptions, timestamps. On one wall, a whiteboard listed missing children. In thick black marker, 6 names, ages, clothing descriptions. Colored pins marked last seen locations on a blown-up map of the park. Clara stiffened beside Noah. "It's okay," he murmured. "We're just going to tell them you're here." A young security woman with a Santa hat perched crookedly on her head finally waved them forward. Her smile was practiced but tired, the kind that had been used too many times already tonight. "Lost child?" she asked, reaching for a clipboard. "Found," Noah said. "Her name's Clara. She got separated from her mom." The woman's fingers paused. She checked her screen, brows knitting together. "We don't have a report yet." "Clara, honey, do you know what your mom looks like?" Clara shook her head, lips trembling again.
Tears pooled fast.
Spilling over before she could stop them. Noah felt the weight of the room pressing in, the noise, the fear, the waiting. He leaned down slightly so his jacket fell around Clara like a shield. The faded blue canvas bore the stitched logo of his construction company across the chest, frayed at the edges, dusted with flecks of dried concrete he'd never fully scrubbed out. "She's overwhelmed," he said gently. "We can stay nearby if that helps." The guard sighed, rubbing her forehead. "Honestly, that might be best. We're swamped tonight. If you can stay in one of the main areas, the carousel, the big tree. Parents usually circle back there." Noah nodded. It made sense. The park was too large, the crowd too fluid. Movement right now felt dangerous. Outside, the night seemed louder. Clara's hand tightened in his as people brushed past them. Her breathing went shallow again, eyes darting at every sudden sound. Without thinking, Noah crouched and scooped her up. She startled, then melted against him, small arms wrapping around his neck as if she'd been waiting for permission. He shifted her weight easily, muscle memory kicking in from years of carrying Emma when she was smaller. "There," he said softly. "I've got you." Emma walked close on his other side, watching Clara's face with serious concentration. Like this was a problem she was determined to help solve. They made their way back toward the heart of the park, where the carousel turned in slow, steady circles. Its antique horses gleamed under thousands of tiny lights, music drifting out in a looping waltz that seemed to slow time itself. Noah stopped beneath a striped candy cane arch near the entrance. "This is a good spot," he said. "Easy to see." He lowered Clara but kept a hand on her back, letting her feel the reassurance without trapping her. The carousel rose and fell in front of them, lights reflecting in her eyes. Slowly, her grip on his jacket loosened. Emma pointed. "That one looks like a princess horse," she said, nodding toward a white figure with roses painted in its mane. Clara sniffed. "I like the gray one." "The gray one's brave," Emma decided. "See how it's looking forward?" For the first time since she'd run into him, Clara smiled. Just a little, but it was there. Noah lifted her again, settling her onto his shoulders so she could see above the crowd. Her hands rested lightly in his hair, trust replacing panic inch by inch. The music played. Snow drifted. The world held. Across the park, in a space far removed from carousel lights and painted horses, Vivian Hart was unraveling. She had turned away for less than a minute. A call from her assistant, urgent, insistent, a change to tomorrow's schedule. When she looked back, Clara was gone. Vivian moved fast, heels slipping on the pavement as she pushed through the crowd. Her security team spread out at once, voices low and clipped in her earpiece, but their calm only sharpened her terror. Every child with dark curls made her heart seize. Every second stretched unbearably long. No sign. Came the updates. Again and again. The lights blurred. The music mocked her. And as Clara laughed softly on Noah's shoulders, the night closed in around her mother, fear blooming unchecked. Vivian Hart ran. She no longer cared who saw her or what she looked like. Her carefully chosen coat snagged against strangers' sleeves. Her breath burned in her chest, and the world had narrowed to a single, unbearable fear. Somewhere in the crowd, her daughter was alone. Then she saw her. Clara sat high on a man's shoulders near the carousel, small hands tangled in his hair. She was laughing. Actually laughing. Her head tipped back as fake snow drifted down around her. The sight struck Vivian like a physical blow. Relief surged first, so sharp it nearly dropped her to her knees. Then terror followed, louder, darker, and far more powerful. Who was that man? Why was he holding her child? Why was Clara smiling when Vivian had been tearing the park apart, screaming her name until her voice cracked? Every story she had ever read rushed into her mind at once. Every warning, every nightmare she had replayed in quiet moments she never admitted existed. She didn't think. She acted. Get away from her! The words tore out of her throat as she shoved through the final few feet of crowd. She grabbed Clara's coat and yanked her down with frantic force, pulling her against her chest. "Don't touch my daughter," Vivian shouted. "Don't you ever touch her." The man stumbled backward, hands raised instinctively, surprise flashing across his face. Phones rose around them like a wall, screens glowing, lenses pointed. Someone gasped. Someone else shouted for security. Emma froze. She stood a few steps away, eyes wide and shining, her small body rigid with fear. She reached for her father but hesitated, as if the scene had turned him into something unfamiliar. "Ma'am," a security guard said urgently, pushing through the forming circle. "Please calm down." Vivian couldn't hear him. Clara began to cry, sharp sobs tearing through her chest as Vivian held her too tightly, shaking now with adrenaline and rage. "You had her on your shoulders," Vivian accused, pointing at the man. "You were taking her somewhere. I saw you. I was helping her," he said, voice steady despite the chaos. "She was lost." "Liar." Emma flinched at the word. The crowd pressed closer. A second guard arrived. Radios crackled. The carousel kept turning, its cheerful music grotesquely out of place. "Mommy, stop." Clara's voice cut through everything. She twisted in Vivian's arms, tears streaking her cheeks. "Stop, Mommy. Please." Vivian looked down. Clara's face was red and blotchy, but her eyes were clear, focused not on fear, but on the man standing a few feet away, on Emma trembling beside him. "He helped me," Clara sobbed. "He didn't hurt me. He and Emma helped me." The words landed like stones. Vivian's grip loosened. I was scared. Clara went on, voice shaking. I couldn't find you, and he took me to the security place. And then we waited here so you could find me. Silence rippled outward. The man lowered his hands slowly. I just tried to keep her calm, he said quietly. I figured this was where you'd come looking. Vivian's breath stuttered. She looked at him properly for the first time. Not as a threat, not as a faceless danger, but as a person. The worn canvas jacket with a construction logo stitched across the chest. The protective angle of his body toward his daughter. The absence of anything predatory in his posture. Just a father. The shame came fast and merciless. Vivian tried to speak, but the words tangled in her throat. She looked around and saw the phones, the staring faces, the way Emma pressed closer to her father, eyes brimming. I'm sorry, Vivian whispered, though she wasn't sure anyone heard. I'm so sorry. The man nodded once. You were scared, he said. I understand. She didn't deserve his calm. Vivian pulled Clara close again. Not in panic now, but in devastation. She couldn't stand to be there another second. Not with her mistake laid bare in front of strangers and children alike. Security cleared a path. Her team closed in around her, shielding her from the crowd as she retreated, head bowed, heart pounding. She did not look back. If she had, she would have seen the man watching her go. Not with anger, but with a quiet sadness that lingered long after. The lights swallowed her. That night, Vivian lay awake. Clara slept curled against her, small breaths rising and falling in steady rhythm. Vivian's arm was draped protectively over her daughter's back, fingers tangled in dark curls. Outside the bedroom window, snow fell softly, streetlights casting pale reflections across the glass. Vivian stared into the darkness. She replayed the moment. Again and again, the accusation, the way she had grabbed Clara, the fear on that little girl's face when she watched a stranger attack her father. What lesson had she taught her daughter tonight? That fear justified cruelty? That power meant you didn't have to listen? Her chest tightened. She pressed her forehead against Clara's hair and closed her eyes, though sleep would not come. I almost destroyed someone good, she thought, in front of my child. The knowledge settled heavily, unyielding. Snow continued to fall. Clara slept on, unaware, and Vivian Hart lay awake, questioning everything she thought she knew about control, fear, and the fragile line between protection and harm. Vivian Hart did not sleep. Morning came gray and brittle, the kind of winter light that revealed rather than softened. Clara ate her breakfast quietly, glancing up at her mother with the cautious awareness children developed when something fragile lingered in the air. Vivian kissed the top of her head and promised she would be back soon. It was a promise she intended to keep. She returned to Wonderland Park before noon. The decorations were still up, lights dimmer in daylight, the magic thinner without the cover of night. The park looked smaller, more mechanical, wires visible where snow machines had been, scuffed pavement where crowds had surged. Vivian approached the security office with none of last night's urgency. This time, her voice shook. I'm looking for the man who helped my daughter, she said. He was wearing a blue canvas work jacket.
Construction logo.
He stood near the carousel. The guard hesitated, then nodded. A few keystrokes, a glance at the monitors replaying last night in grainy fragments. A pause. Yes, she said finally. I remember him. They hadn't gone far. Vivian found them in the VIP lounge. Near the center of the park, a space reserved for donors and guests who wanted warmth, quiet, and distance from the crowds. Soft golden lights glowed overhead. A towering Christmas tree stood in the corner, its ornaments muted, elegant. Noah Miller stood near the window, hands tucked into his jacket pockets. He looked out of place and fully aware of it. His shoulders were slightly hunched, as if bracing for judgment. Emma sat nearby on a low sofa, her legs swinging as she listened intently to Clara describe something animatedly with her hands. They looked comfortable. Vivian stopped just inside the doorway. The words she had rehearsed scattered. She took a breath and stepped forward. "Noah," she said. He turned slowly. Recognition crossed his face, followed by something guarded. Not hostility. Something quieter. Hurt, still healing. Emma stiffened beside him. Vivian felt the weight of that immediately. Her voice failed. She swallowed and tried again. "I wanted to apologize. Properly." Noah nodded once. "Okay." The simplicity of his response made her palms sweat. "I was wrong," Vivian said, the words scraping on. "The way out. Completely wrong. I accused you of something unforgivable. In public. In front of your daughter." Her breath came uneven now. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I needed you to hear that I know what I did." She clasped her hands together to keep them from trembling. "I was scared," she added, hating how thin it sounded. "But fear doesn't excuse it." Noah didn't speak. Right away, he glanced at Emma, then back at Vivian. "You were scared for your child," he said carefully. "I understand that." Relief flickered, then stalled. "That doesn't mean it didn't hurt," he continued. Vivian nodded, shame settling deeper. "I know." An awkward silence followed. The stretched, heavy but not hostile. Somewhere behind them, a coffee machine hissed softly. Laughter drifted in faintly from the far end of the lounge. Children's voices, light and unburdened. Clara tugged at Emma's sleeve. "Can I show you the reindeer thing?" she whispered. Emma glanced at her father. Noah hesitated, then nodded. The girls scampered off together, their giggles dissolving the tension in a way no adult apology ever could. Vivian watched them go, something loosening painfully in her chest. "She talks about Emma constantly," Vivian said quietly. "I haven't seen her open up like that in months." Noah leaned against the window, arms folded. "Emma doesn't have many friends," he said. "We move around a lot, job to job." They stood there, two adults bound by circumstances neither had chosen. "I'm not asking for anything," Vivian said quickly. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry, and thank you for helping Clara, for staying." Noah nodded again, but his expression remained reserved. He wasn't unkind. He just wasn't ready. "I appreciate the apology," he said, "but I need time." Vivian accepted that. She had no right to rush him. She glanced toward the girls, who were now crouched on the floor, heads bent together in intense concentration. "If you're willing," Vivian said, hesitating, "you're welcome to stay a bit longer. There's no obligation." The girls seemed happy. Noah followed her gaze. Emma laughed, unguarded. He exhaled slowly. "Okay," he said at last. "For a while." The words weren't forgiveness, but they were an opening. Vivian smiled, small, careful, grateful. The lights glowed warmly above them as the girls' laughter echoed softly through the lounge, weaving something fragile and new between two worlds that had never expected to meet. Noah had never felt the shape of a room so sharply. The VIP reception hall glimmered with soft gold light, crystal chandeliers refracting it into 100 smaller stars. People moved with practiced ease, glasses of champagne balanced effortlessly in their hands, voices low and polished. Laughter here was measured, controlled. Even joy seemed curated. He stood near the edge of it all, one hand resting on the back of Emma's chair, as if anchoring himself to something solid. His blue canvas jacket, clean but unmistakably worn, felt heavier in this space. He was aware of it in the way. One became aware of a sore tooth, impossible to ignore. Emma, oblivious, sat cross-legged on the carpet with Clara, the two of them whispering fiercely over a puzzle set out for children of donors. Their heads bent close together, shoulders touching, an effortless intimacy Noah envied. Vivian moved through the room like she belonged to it. People leaned toward her instinctively. Hands touched her arm. Names were spoken with admiration. Noah watched her from a distance, trying to reconcile the composed woman before him with the one who had clutched her child in terror the night before. He told himself he didn't care what these people thought. Still, the looks came. Quick assessments. Curiosity edged with judgment. A man like Noah knew those glances well. He had seen them at school meetings, at hospital billing desks, in places where money translated into authority. He shifted closer to the wall, letting the crowd pass around him. That was when he heard Vivian's voice. She stood a few feet away, half-turned toward a small group, 2 women in sleek coats, a man with silver hair and an easy smile. Noah wasn't trying to listen. He simply couldn't. Not here. It was awful, Vivian was saying. I lost Clara for half an hour, but thankfully someone stepped in. A good man. A construction worker. He helped keep her safe. That's wonderful, one of the women said warmly. Vivian nodded. Yes, I'm making sure they're taken care of. It's the least I can do. Helping a family who's struggling, especially around the holidays. The words landed quietly.
No acquiescen. No malis.
And yet, something inside Noah tightened sharply. Helping a family who's struggling. He felt heat rise behind his eyes. Unexpected and unwelcome. It wasn't pride alone. It was something more vulnerable, being reduced to a category, a gesture. Problem solved with generosity. Noah turned away before anyone noticed him standing there. He moved toward the far corner of the room, where the light dimmed and the music softened. He stared out the tall window at the park below, carousel lights still turning slowly in the distance. He hadn't asked for help. He hadn't asked to be talked about at all. His reflection stared back at him faintly in the glass. A man out of place. A man whose goodness had been translated into charity. Daddy! Emma's voice startled him. He turned to see her standing beside him, Clara just behind her. The girl's hands were still clasped together, fingers sticky with something. Sweet. You went quiet, Emma said. I'm okay, Noah replied automatically. He forced a smile. Just tired. Emma studied him with unnerving clarity, then nodded, apparently satisfied. Children often accepted truths adults struggled to say aloud. Clara tugged on his sleeve. Daddy Noah? He blinked at the name, startled. Can I tell you something? She asked. He crouched to her. Level. Of course. Clara leaned closer, lowering her voice conspiratorially. My mommy cried. Noah's breath caught. She did. Clara nodded solemnly. In the car. She thought I was asleep, but I wasn't. She said she was scared she hurt a good man. She said you were very kind, and that she didn't want me to think hurting people was okay. The words slid under his defenses, uninvited. Emma glanced between them, then squeezed Clara's hand. Noah straightened slowly. Across the room, Vivian laughed at something someone said. Her posture relaxed but her eyes tired in a way Noah recognized now. Not the exhaustion of wealth or work, but of carrying something heavy alone. The hurt didn't vanish, but it shifted. He wasn't ready to forgive her, not fully. The sting of being spoken about as a problem still lingered, sharp and personal. But Clara's small, earnest confession reframed the moment. It hadn't been generosity Vivian was offering her friends. It had been penance, clumsy and imperfect. Noah exhaled. Emma tugged at his jacket. Clara wants to show me the lights again. He nodded. Go ahead. As the girls ran off, their laughter threading through the hum of adult conversation, Noah remained where he was, standing between two truths. Vivian had hurt him. Vivian was trying. He wasn't ready to meet her halfway yet. But for the first time, since the accusation, he felt the ground beneath his feet shift. Not toward forgiveness, but toward understanding. And sometimes Noah knew that was the harder step. Vivian waited until the girls were distracted. Emma and Clara sat on the floor near the window, backs pressed together as they colored quietly, heads bent in matching concentration. The noise of the reception had thinned as the evening wore on. Glasses clinked more softly now. Conversations slowed. The night outside pressed its dark reflection against the glass. Noah, Vivian said gently, may I speak with you? He hesitated, then nodded. They moved a few steps away, far enough that the girls' voices blurred into background sound. Vivian folded her hands together the way she had the night she apologized. He noticed it now, how often she did that when she was nervous. "I've been thinking about Emma," she began. Noah felt his shoulders tense. He kept his expression neutral. "She's wonderful," Vivian continued. "Kind. Grounded. Clara adores her." "She's my kid," Noah said quietly. "Yes," Vivian said, and smiled. "I know." She took a breath. "Clara's school has a winter program. Smaller classes. Arts, science trips, things she thrives with. I would like to sponsor Emma's enrollment." The words landed with precision. Noah stared at her.
Sponsor?
"It wouldn't be charity," Vivian said quickly. "It would be gratitude and opportunity." Heat surged up his spine. "You want to pay for my daughter's education," he said flatly. Vivian nodded. "Yes." The room seemed to shrink. "I didn't help your daughter for money," Noah said, his voice tight. "I know that," Vivian replied. "This isn't payment. It feels like it." Vivian stepped closer, her tone careful. "It's not about you being unable to provide. It's about..." "About what?" Noah cut in. "About fixing something you think is broken." Her eyes widened. "Noah, that's not what I mean." "Then what do you mean?" His words came faster now, sharp with something he'd kept buried for years. "That because I don't have money like you. My kid needs saving." "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to." Emma looked up from across the room, her brows knitting together. Noah saw it and forced himself to step back. Vivian's voice softened. "I'm not questioning your love or your ability. I'm saying I have resources, and sometimes sharing them is the right thing. And sometimes," Noah said, "it's a reminder of everything someone else doesn't have." Silence settled between them. "I'm sorry," Vivian said finally. "I didn't think." "That's the problem," Noah said. He took a breath, steadying himself. "I need some air." He didn't wait for a response. The drive home was quiet. Emma fell asleep in the passenger seat, head tilted against the window, breath slow and even. Noah carried her inside, laid her gently on the couch, and covered her with the thin blanket they used year-round. Then he sat alone at the kitchen table. The apartment was dim, lit only by the yellow bulb above the sink. The clock on the wall ticked steadily, marking time with indifferent precision. Noah stood and crossed the room to the small dresser by the hallway. He opened the bottom drawer. Inside were papers he rarely touched. Hospital bills, insurance statements, letters printed in sterile fonts, all numbers and codes and balances he had never fully erased. He sat on the edge of the bed and spread them out in his hands. He saw his wife's name again, the dates, the final total. His chest tightened. Noah bowed his head, shoulders curling inward as something inside him finally broke. He pressed a fist to his mouth to keep the sound from carrying. "I'm trying," he whispered into the quiet. "I'm trying so hard." The tears came anyway. Silent, hot, unfamiliar. Not grief alone. Fear. Fear that love wasn't enough. Fear that one day Emma would look back and see only the things he couldn't give her. He wiped his face roughly, ashamed even in solitude. After a long while, Noah folded the papers carefully and slid them back into the drawer. He closed it with deliberate care, as if sealing the moment inside. The phone buzzed. Vivian's name lit the screen. He stared at it, then answered. "I'm sorry," she said immediately. "I pushed too hard." Noah closed his eyes. "I need time," he said, "to think." "I understand." He hesitated. The anger had dulled, leaving honesty in its place. "I don't know what the right answer is," he said, "but I'll think about it." The words surprised him with their "Wait." "Thank you," Vivian said softly. Noah hung up and sat in the quiet apartment, listening to the clock tick on. For the first time that night, he allowed himself to believe that thinking, really thinking, might be enough for now. Snow fell quietly on Vivian Hart Street, softening the edges of everything it touched. The house looked different that night. Not because of the decorations, but because of who had put them there. Paper snowflakes hung unevenly from the banister, some cut too thick, others torn at the edges. A string of lights blinked stubbornly near the fireplace, refusing to sync with the rest. The dining table was set with mismatched candles, wax already dripping in crooked lines. It wasn't perfect. It was alive. Noah stood just inside the doorway with Emma's hand tucked into his, both of them taking it in with careful wonder. Emma's eyes widened first, then softened. "It smells like potatoes," she whispered happily. Vivian laughed, breathless and unguarded. "That's because I might have overdone them." Clara darted into the room, already wearing a paper crown she had made herself, tugging Emma forward. "Come see. We made these together." The girls disappeared up the stairs in a rush of giggles, leaving the adults behind in the warm hush of the living room. Dinner was serviceable. The turkey was a little dry, the gravy too thin. Noah's contribution, a simple stuffing recipe from his grandmother, stole the show by accident. They bumped elbows in the kitchen, laughed at their mistakes, and let silence settle without rushing to fill it. Felt unfamiliar and good. Later, they moved into the living room, the fire crackling low and steady. Outside, snow drifted past the windows, the world reduced to white and quiet. The girls curled up on the rug with a box of crayons and paper. Clara presented Noah with a small, uneven bracelet threaded with plastic beads spelling hero. "I made it for you," she said, solemnly, "because you saved me." Noah swallowed. "I'll keep it forever." Emma handed Clara a drawing, two stick figures holding hands beneath a crooked Christmas tree. "Best friends," she had written carefully at the top. Vivian watched from the couch, something deep in her chest loosening with each small exchange. This was what she had been missing. Not the absence of wealth, but the presence of attention, of care. When the girls finally grew quiet, their heads leaning together, fingers still intertwined, Noah pulled a blanket over them. "They're out," he said softly. Vivian smiled. They found each other. They sat by the fire, not touching, not distant, simply there. Vivian broke the silence first. "You talked a lot about promises," she said. "About being there no matter what." Noah nodded, eyes on the flames. "What was your promise to Emma this year?" she asked. He didn't hesitate. That she'd feel safe. That she'd feel seen. A pause. That she'd smile. Vivian absorbed that. Then she nodded slowly. "I think that's my promise too." No grand declarations followed. No plans were made. They didn't need to be. This wasn't about fixing lives. It was about sharing space. Outside, the snow thickened. Inside, the fire burned low, casting shadows across the room where four people, once strangers, had chosen to stay. Noah watched Emma in her sleep, her face relaxed, her hand still curled around Clara's. For the first time in a long while, the quiet didn't feel heavy. Felt complete. And somewhere, between dreams and waking, Emma smiled faintly, as if she understood something the adults were still learning. She didn't need a grand kind of magic. She only needed everyone to be here,